Indonesia just raised the alert level on one of the deadliest volcanoes on Earth. The numbers from the current monitoring period are quieter than the historical record suggests they should be. 519 shallow volcanic earthquakes between May 1st and May 18th. 24 deep volcanic earthquakes in the same window. 2 distinct seismic swarms of 74 events each, one on May 4th, one on the morning of May 19th. White plumes rising 100 to 200 meters above the lava dome inside the summit crater. A 4-kilometer exclusion zone drawn around a 4.5-kilometer wide caldera now in force on the northern end of Great Sangihe Island in North Sulawesi province. Alert Level 3, Siaga, the second highest on Indonesia's 4-level scale, raised at 1300 local time on May 19, 2026. None of those numbers describe an eruption. All of them describe a warning. It is the first time in over 20 years that Mount Awu has been raised to this level. But here is the detail that tells the real story. Mount Awu is not just another active Indonesian stratovolcano. Indonesia has more than 130 of those. Awu sits on a different list, a much shorter one. 5 explosive eruptions, 315 years, 11,048 cumulative dead, according to peer-reviewed studies. The 4-kilometer exclusion zone is not procedural. It is a memorial in the present tense. In Tahuna, the harbor town 15 kilometers from the crater, residents woke up on May 20th to a different morning. The fishing boats still went out. The market still opened. But the exclusion line was now drawn on the map. Older residents remember 2004, when 27,000 people were evacuated under a similar alert. The volcano did not produce a major eruption that year. An alert is not always followed by an eruption, but it is always followed by a question. The last time Awu killed anyone, the date was August 12th, 1966. 60 years between the last killing eruption and today's alert. And the configuration that did the killing is being rebuilt above the same conduit. This is how the signal climbed. In late 2025, the seismic counts under Awu started fluctuating. The alert held at level 2 Waspada as the reading stayed inside historical background. In early May 2026, the fluctuation steepened. On May 4th, the seismometers recorded a single shallow swarm of 74 events in one 12-hour window. The agency did not escalate. The monitoring continued. Between May 1st and May 18th, the cumulative count climbed to 519 shallow volcanic earthquakes, the signal that indicates rock fracturing at shallow depths beneath the edifice. Layered on top, 24 deep volcanic earthquakes from deeper inside the crust, the signal volcanologists associate with magma movement from the deep reservoir toward the surface. On the morning of May 19th, between midnight and noon, the volcano produced its second shallow swarm of 74 events. Same pattern, same depth range, same window length. At 1300 local time, the Pusat Vulkanologi dan Mitigasi Bencana Geologi, known as PVMBG, raised Awu to alert level 3. The combination of climbing shallow earthquakes and persistent deep earthquakes is the pattern PVMBG escalates on. It is not proof of an imminent eruption. It is proof that magma and rock and fluid pressure inside the volcano are not where they were 2 months ago. Climbing, that is the word that matters this week. And it is not the first time it is applied to this volcano. Here is why this signal matters. 5 eruptions are responsible for Awu's body count. In 1711, a V3 explosive eruption. Pyroclastic flows ran down the flanks. That eruption is logged as the start of Awu's deadly modern record. In 1812, a V4, the second most powerful category on the volcanic explosivity index. Roughly 3,000 people died. On March 2, 1856, a Wave 3 began with loud explosions audible across the Sangihe Islands. Lava and pyroclastic flows reached the sea. The death toll was 2,806. In 1892, another Wave 3, the Sangihe Islands suffered widespread devastation. On August 12, 1966, a Wave 4. Pyroclastic flows traveled an average of 5 kilometers from the crater down the western flank above the harbor city of Tahuna. 39 were killed, 2,000 were injured, 11,000 were displaced. The summit crater lake that had been there since at least 1922, 1 kilometer wide and 172 meters deep, was largely ejected by that single eruption. Smithsonian's Global Volcanism Program puts the floor on cumulative deaths at more than 8,000. In 2020, a team of volcanologists published a study in the journal Natural Hazards and Earth System Sciences. The title described Awu in 5 words: among the deadliest volcanoes on Earth. The 18 total eruptions of Awu since 1640 were not all deadly. Most produced no recorded casualties. The 5 that did drive the cumulative number, and what made those 5 so much worse than the others, is not the magnitude alone. It is the configuration of the volcano itself. Here is why this volcano is so dangerous when it does erupt. The summit of Awu is a hole. The crater is 1.5 kilometers across at the rim, 380 meters deep. Inside it sits a lava dome, 30 meters high, 370 meters in diameter, emplaced after the 2004 eruption. Above the dome, the crater historically holds a lake. Rainfall on Sangihe feeds it. The lake is not a metaphor, it is a real body of water on top of a real lava dome on top of a real magma conduit. The mechanism is straightforward. Magma rises in the conduit. The dome cracks. Lake water leaks through the cracks. When magma and water make direct contact, the water flashes to steam in milliseconds. The expansion is violent. The dome shatters from below. The lake above is launched into the air as a steam and debris column. Pyroclastic flows are generated as the column collapses back down the flanks. The interior temperature of the magma in contact with the lake can exceed 800 degrees Celsius, roughly 1,470 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to vaporize a lake, hot enough to blast the lava dome apart, hot enough to launch pyroclastic flows 5 kilometers down the western flank. That is exactly what happened in 1966. And in 1992, even without a Wave 4, the same mechanism showed itself in miniature. The crater lake's pH dropped from 5 to 2. 80% of the lake drained suddenly. The volcano did not erupt explosively that year, but the mechanism was active. The lava dome on Awu's summit today is the 3rd generation of that configuration. The crater lake is rebuilding above it on the same rainfall. The conduit beneath has not moved. Deep valleys dissect the flanks of the volcano in nearly every direction. They channel ash, they channel pyroclastic debris, they channel water-mobilized lahars when heavy rains hit fresh deposits. The western valleys above Tahuna are the ones that carried the 1966 flows down to the harbor. What PVMBG is watching this week? Continued shallow and deep seismic counts. Changes in summit plume activity. Crater morphology changes. Sulfur dioxide measurements, GPS-based ground deformation, and reports of anyone entering the 4-kilometer exclusion zone. This is not a confirmed eruption warning, but Awu's history is the reason Indonesia raised the alert level on May 19th. The exclusion zone is enforced. PVMBG monitoring continues. There is no eruption today. The question now is not whether Awu is repeating 1966. PVMBG has not said that. The question is whether the seismic signal continues climbing or stabilizes. The question is whether the people of Sangihe and Tahuna are reading the PVMBG bulletins the agency publishes every day. Awu is frightening not because everyone knows its name, but because history shows what can happen when water, magma, and a crater lake fail at the same time. 11,000 deaths, 5 explosive eruptions, 1 lava dome rebuilding above the same conduit. If this story is worth telling, subscribe. We cover more of these every week.